This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Kathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Hello, I'm Kathy Worthington. Welcome to our latest episode of Late Boomers. Today, our special guest is Tracy Herbert, who is a leading authority on health and wellness, a transformational health and longevity coach, professional speaker, best-selling author, host of the Longevity Codes podcast, and diabetes advocate.
Yeah, and I'm Mary Elkins. Tracy is also a sought-after speaker and frequent guest on TV shows. We're going to delve into her story today and hope to get some great tips for you. Welcome, Tracy.
Oh, thank you all so much. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you.
Yeah, I love that you're coming to us from Texas today. I love that accent.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your background so we know how you arrived at your current story.
It all started when I was 17 years old. I'm not 17 now, but bear with me. But it all
Our
started.
YouTube audience will know that.
Yes. But it is funny when I'm speaking to large audiences, they all look at me like, she's not 17. But I was 17 in the ICU fighting for my life. And the doctor walks in, he puts his hands on his hips and he says, young lady, you've got juvenile diabetes. You're going to be dead in 20 years. You're going to die with horrible complications. You're never going to be able to have children. And you have to take multiple shots every single day for the rest of your life. And he turned around and walked away. He walked out of that
What a
little
great doctor.
hospital.
That's
I
horrible.
know, right?
Horrible.
But
Horrible.
that was the best thing that ever happened to me because my story continues. I had to stay in the hospital for about 2 weeks because I had to learn how to give myself shots. You know, I'm 17, learning a whole new lifestyle, how to eat, what I can and cannot eat. And my friends and I were going to go to a movie about a week or so after I got out of the hospital. And it was National Lampoon's Animal House. I think y'all are probably old enough to remember Animal House.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You know,
Oh,
as
yeah.
I was running out the door, getting ready, my mom said, Tracy, remember, you can't eat anything. And she didn't say that to be mean, y'all. She didn't say it because we didn't have the money, but she was helping me learn what I could and couldn't do because back then it was on what I call the starvation diet with diabetes.
Ooh.
And I went into to ask the concession stand clerk if I could have just a small cup for a drink of water, you know, the water fountain. And she looked at me like I was from outer space and she said, no. And I said, oh, I'll be glad to pay for it. And she said, no. And I ran out of that movie theater crying, sobbing as hard as I could, saying, why me? Why me? And I went home. My mom knew something was wrong, but she gave me the space that I needed. I'm 17, had a whole life, I thought, out looking, getting ready to go to college and doing all the things that normal 17-year-old seniors in high school do. And I laid in bed and I cried it seemed like several hours. It was probably just a few minutes. And I said, Tracy, you've got two choices. What are they going to be? I said out loud, I can be better or I can be bitter. What am I going to choose? And I said, I'm going to be better. And I've stuck with that for now 46 and a half years later. I'm still living every day being better and not bitter because that was such a horrific thing. And this doctor, these medical team people, nobody gave me hope. And I started going to a local college medical school library. And of course, I was just a punk kid in high school. And they let me in because I was very quiet. This was way before the internet, you know, like in the movie theater. We didn't have bottled water, diet soft drinks, or anything. And I started taking notes and started researching at that time what people did to live healthy with diabetes. And I started doing different things on myself. And it just transformed my life because I started saying, I'm in control a little bit, not a whole lot, but I started learning something every day. And to this day, I still research every single day tips that we can be healthy. Craziest thing.
Well, talking about control, what's the number one key to taking control of your life? What did you do then, and what do you do now?
Of your health, yeah.
Yeah,
With your health.
It actually
taking
rolls
control
down
of
to
your life and health.
health. There you go.
Yeah.
Life. Because without life, I don't want to just take control of my health because I want to live my life and do it to an abundant, but it was three things that I boiled down in the last probably 25 or 30 years. After all the research, I kept seeing the same thing. And these three things, if you don't remember anything else, remember these three things. Mind. You have to have the right mindset. Know you can do what you need to do. And that's turning down certain foods. That's getting off the couch and exercising or those kind of things. And the second M is mouth. We have to learn to eat to live. Don't live to eat. And the third one is get off our chairs or the sofas and move more. And that's what I've been doing for now 46 and a half years. I'm almost to my 47th anniversary of my diagnosis. And I started doing that and started realizing it all starts with the mind. That's what I tell I've always said when people offer me something that I know doesn't work for me and my disease, I just say, no, thank you. But in my mind, I say, I choose to live. I don't choose to die. And those kind of things really impacted my life. And for a great example, let's go back a few decades ago to when I was a high school senior and all my friends, we'd all go to the pizza place after, Friday nights, after you go cruising down the streets or whatever you do. And all my friends were eating pizza. Well, that was one of the foods I was forbidden to eat back then. Again, it was a different kind of diet than it is now. And I would imagine, of course, I'm using my mind. I would imagine mice running over the pizza using the restroom. And I would sit there in my mind and I'd say, why would anybody want to eat that nasty stuff? So whatever you're struggling with, donuts, cake, cookies, you imagine something like that and your life will change. You won't start eating that kind of stuff or you'll quickly stop eating it, which is why I have more energy now in my mid 60s than I even did in my 30s because I eat things to live and not to die. That's exactly what I've been doing now for 46 years.
I hope you went back to visit that nasty doctor at some point.
Well,
and told him that
unfortunately,
you had outlived his. He's dead, probably.
Yeah, he's dead,
But
and he
it was
died
such
actually.
a nasty thing to talk to.
Terrible thing.
I know, but again, I looked at it as a benefit because if he'd have said, you know what, it's going to be okay, you're going to be okay, I probably wouldn't have taken this disease so seriously because I didn't know anybody with diabetes. It didn't run in my family. I just was the fortunate one in my family to get it, but I just didn't want him to ever feel bad because it saved my life. I really truly feel to this day because I choose to be better and not bitter. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so he said, you'd never have kids. And I have two healthy kids and I'm a grandma. And that's the most important thing to me. But every decade since my 20th anniversary of my diagnosis, because I was only supposed to live 20 years and die with these horrible complications, I started doing something to celebrate my diagnosis. Again, it's a mindset thing. I choose to be better, not bitter. And for my 20th anniversary of my diagnosis, I did a 100-mile bike ride, a race, and it was fun. No problems at all. And then for my 30th diagnosis anniversary, I actually did a triathlon and I'm petrified of water, but I do something every day that frightens me also. Eleanor Roosevelt, I loved her quotes, And then as my 40th anniversary approached, I kept thinking, what am I going to do? I mean, I am in my late 50s at this time. What am I going to do? And I thought, go across the country. So I thought, okay, how do I do this? So I started kind of thinking, what could I do? And I loved a bike ride. And I thought, I'll go for a bike ride. So I left the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco and ended up in New York City at the Brooklyn Bridge, 3,000.
That's amazing.
Phenomenal. I was just gonna. My next question, of course, was to ask you about your amazing bike ride, because tell us more about what inspired you to ride that 3,527
27
miles.
miles. Uh-huh.
And what
It's,
was it like?
oh, it was the most incredible experience. I was planning on doing it a couple years ago, and then the pandemic hit, and I thought, no, not yet. So I may do it in the next couple of years again because it was so much fun. It was hard. I'm a Texan, and I
Did
started in
someone go
California.
with you?
Yes and no. We had to get an RV because when you have type 1 diabetes, you have to take insulin because without insulin, I die. And insulin has to be refrigerated and all my medical
Mm.
Oh,
supplies. So my husband, he took a leave from his career and we bought a motorhome, an RV. And then every morning I would go on my bike and then he'd say, okay, where do you want to meet for lunch? And we'd have an idea. And then at lunchtime, we'd meet where we're going to have, go spend the night that night, not the RV, because I was going to camp. And, my husband's like, what are you going to do about your insulin? And I thought, oh, I hadn't thought of that. So I rode the whole thing by myself, but then I had him in the lunchtime in the evenings to get together. And, he always did the dishes. He cooked the meals. He went grocery shopping. He did everything, it was just an amazing trip. But
oh, what
What
I
a
a
am,
great
great
husband.
support
I know,
staff.
I
Your
know, I
support
know.
staff.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And then it's talking about support staff. It was very easy for me. I mean, the mountains were just like nothing I had ever expected. I mean, I go the mountains, but never riding my bike over 3 mountain ranges going across the country. But like the second or third day, had just finished a TV appearance in Sacramento, and I got a message because I started doing this on social media because I wanted to provide hope, not just to
Mhm.
celebrate my diagnosis, but I wanted to help the kids that have the same disease that I have realize that nothing's impossible. And I got the sweetest message from one of the moms of her 6-year-old daughter who'd been fighting diabetes for several years. And they went out and bought a map of the United States. And then she cut out a bicycle and cut out a picture of my head and had the head
Oh,
attached. And then they went my whole entire map across the United States. And I
Oh,
thought,
that's so lovely.
and so it was easy for me to get on my bicycle because I kept thinking of this little girl the whole entire time. I would be like, I can do it. I can do it. Because when I was diagnosed, I didn't know anybody with diabetes, type 1 or type 2. But of course, we didn't call it back then. We called it juvenile and adult diabetes, which we changed all that to type 1 and type 2, except for Mary Tyler Moore. And she became my hero. And every time
oh.
I would watch, Mary Tyler Moore or something, I'd think of her throwing her hat up in the air. And I would always say, if she can do it, so can I. So I was trying to make it where this little girl and then all these other children that I met throughout talking at camps and hospitals. And, the parents would bring out to different they had like celebrations along the route that people, businesses and hospitals and organizations would have for me to be able to speak to the kids and speak to the parents and so
The
forth. So
word really got
Yeah.
out about your
yeah,
ride while you were doing
yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
How wonderful that you're able to inspire so many people, especially when you didn't have that support group. Congratulations. I want to
Well,
ask
Yeah.
thank
you
you.
about
Mhm,
weight management because there's a lot of people who are heavy. They don't have diabetes, but
mhm.
after they gain a lot of weight, they become diabetic. So, can you talk about the key principles to management for people who are not diabetic and for people who are?
Yes. So not all people that are heavy develop type 2 diabetes. What
Right.
my diabetes is totally different. Mine's an autoimmune disease. Type 2, I'm not going to go into the specifics because that could be a whole entire 6 hours of boring medical stuff. I'm not going to do that to y'all. But what
Okay.
is everybody be taking a nap. Your listeners will be like, oh no, no. But what happens is once people become sedentary, when your mind starts making you think, I can't, I'm heavy, or the doctor says you've got this horrible diagnosis or you have pre-diabetes, there's still so much hope out there because you get up off your couch or you get up off your chair. You don't have to ride your bicycle across the United States, but you can go for a walk. And this is a great example of a lady I met again in Sacramento. Sacramento was just an amazing place for me because I met some unique people. But this one young lady, she was probably in her early 30s, mid 30s. And she just happened to just say, hey, I wish I could ride my bike across the city. And I said, well, I'm actually riding to New York City. And I was was waiting for the light to turn green. And I just had that gut feeling, get off your bike and go talk to her. And so I went over and I just started talking to her. And she was the sweetest lady, beautiful face, but she was morbidly obese. And she was telling me she was having to wait for her brother to pick her up. And she only lived around the corner. And she said, it's humiliating. And so I started talking to her. The health coach in me came out. And I said, well, do you think you could walk a couple, buildings, a couple houses down? And she said, no, I can't. And I said, could you go next door? She said, I can't. And then I said, could you walk to the end of your driveway? And just like that, the light bulb, she says, I think I can. Bam. That's what I needed. So I told her, I said, walk to the end of your driveway and rest. Don't make it a big deal. And then walk back. And then if you need a chair, put a chair out to rest and do that maybe once or twice a day for a couple of days, and then start going further and further. And then by the time I was riding into New York City, I got a text message from her. And she says, I'm so excited. I have to tell you, I just signed up for my first 5K walk. That's 3.1 miles. And this is the same lady who couldn't even walk like 3 houses to get from the bus stop to her house. And
how
she said, what's
wonderful.
shocking to me, Tracy, is that you didn't even talk about weight loss. She says, the weight is coming off. She says, I really haven't changed anything until I started walking around the block a couple of times, and I'd come home and I wouldn't want to eat the same kind of foods that I used to eat. And that's what started changing for her, because you can't just exercise. You can't to get the weight off. And it's
No.
much more important to get your health under control with food, but our hearts, our bodies, our moods, energy, everything we need exercise. So then we started talking after the ride was over about, so what are you eating now? And then she said, well, I'm still struggling with a donut. And I said, okay, well, do you like apples? She's like, well, I'd rather have a donut. So I'm saying replace one donut with an apple, just do things like that. But come to find out, which so many of us have the same issue, is she would drive the same place to work every day. She didn't have to take the bus anymore because she was able to get a driver's license, because they wouldn't give her a driver's license because of her weight, which was so sad. But then she said, I'm driving by this donut shop every morning and I want to stop. And I said, change your direction. Don't go by that place. Reset. Always reset. We do that with our computers. So why don't we reset our minds? So she just started making changes like that. It's not like you have to go on a starvation diet. It's not like you have to give up everything you like to eat, but I practice 90-10. I eat healthy 90% of the time. And then 10% of the time I eat. Everybody laughs when I say that, who knows me, my friends and family, because they're like, everything you eat is healthy, but I eat things that aren't quite as healthy. But it's not like, and then, so many people say, oh, goodness gracious, I just ate a hot fudge sundae. I might as well just give it up. No, just next meal or next snack, just change it and don't worry about it. But the key for me and the key for so many of my clients is, once you start drinking water, you think you're hungry. You're not always hungry. You're oftentimes dehydrated. So drink a big glass of water and wait 15, 20 minutes. And then see if you're still hungry. And if you're still hungry, then you eat something. But it's amazing. I've had several of my clients who have prediabetes, and they don't have diabetes now because they just started following these same practices. And a couple other my type 2 diabetics, they actually are not even taking shots anymore. And now they're taking an oral medication, and that's going to be coming off soon, their doctors are saying. So we're talking 2 different types of diabetes. Type 1, what I have, you cannot do anything. My A1C's blood test, for people who don't know diabetes, my blood tests look like I don't have diabetes, but I take insulin all the time. So I have to do it that way. But the thing is, though, for people that don't have diabetes or have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, just a small minor adjustments in their lives, and they can get off their medication slowly. It's not like, a sprint. This is a marathon for everybody in life. But this is why I have more energy again in my 60s than I had in my 30s. And I go and go and go. But I eat the right kinds of foods. And that's where I think it's to answer your question in a long drawn out spiel.
That is
but that's
a great
what it's
answer.
about.
Yeah.
It's a great answer. I want to ask you,
90-10.
what are the keys that you would say to living a longer, healthier life? I know you speak on this topic.
Hmm.
So give us some keys.
Everything I just mentioned, plus
Yes.
there's several more, get around some good support people. That's so important. Hang around positive people, because the more positive people you have in your life, the more activity you're going to be. Also, the more people that have strong social support are less likely to smoke cigarettes, have obesity. So that's why you want to be involved with a good group of people. Volunteer when you realize it's not about me, but it's about others. It really impacts your longevity. I mean, there's research and research about this. Dan Buettner, who wrote The Blue Zones, I'm a huge fan of his.
Oh,
He
I
talks about
love
these
that.
kind of things. Social support, in my opinion, especially as we age, is critical. And that's why I'm involved with young ladies. We're involved with couples. I get involved, I hang out with people my age, older people, but I do multi-generational because I love hanging around some of my ladies in my neighborhood who are mamas of young toddlers and things like that. But then they bring me more energy, but then I can give them my grandma wisdom, as they say to speak. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
get a lot of vitamin D, get outside when it's when it's the weather's okay. Cause a lot of people are in the heat of summer or winter. It's too cold. But when you can get outside, especially in the morning, and you walk, even if it's just for 10 or 15 minutes, or do what I do sometimes in my backyard, I just do a little bit of yoga. And now I am not a flexible person yet. I'm working on that. So I'm not like a
mm-hmm.
yoga instructor or anything like that, but I get out there and do my stretches. But I do it in the sunshine in the morning, because not only does that help me stretch it, because flexibility is still the fountain of youth, in my opinion, but it's also helps with our circadian rhythm, which helps us sleep better at night. So it's all, as postmenopausal women like myself, everybody always says, "Oh, you can't sleep." And I'm like, well, I sleep like a baby every night. I don't have that problem, but it's because of certain things like that. I never eat a meal after 6 o'clock. I drink lots of water. Like I said, I put a little bit of Celtic salt in my water in the morning just to get my cells nourished with water.
What is
And just
that you put in the water? What?
Celtic salt. It's just a healthier form of salt. There's no, it's the pink salt, like Himalayan salt, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They sell them at some of the big box stores here in Texas, but the health food stores, they all sell it. And I don't do the bleach salt, the white salt that's typically at, restaurant tables that, you put in there,
Yeah.
because that's just not what I do, but I do Himalayan or Celtic salt. Celtic salt's what we do because it's just a little bit better for us and what we need in our lives. But anyway,
There's
That's
another
those
great.
things.
product out. There's another product out there. It's by Highlands, and it's called Cell Salts. And
Yes.
I take it every day. And
Uh-huh.
it I don't know, I don't notice it, but I think I would if I didn't take it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
tell us what your 3M formula is and why it's important.
And that's what I just spoke about: mind, mouth, and
Yeah.
move. You got to have the right
Okay.
Yeah.
mindset, and they're like cogs. And without the right mindset, you're not likely to eat healthy. Without the right mindset, you're going to eat the wrong foods. Then you're going to sit on the couch all night because you're too tired to get up and exercise. So all three work together. So the mind is the most important, in my opinion, and most everybody's now, the researchers. But that's what changed my life at 17 was my mind, and still makes me not eat those kind of foods that I want to eat. And then mouth, you got to have the right foods in your mouth to live. And, just good example, with or without diabetes, you go out and have like pasta or something for lunch. And then 2 or 3 hours later, you go back to the office and you're sitting there almost asleep. You're yawning. Your blood sugar spikes again, with or without diabetes. And then it crashes. And when you crash, that's when you become tired. So when you eat foods that maintain your blood sugar, again, with or without diabetes, it changes and you have more energy. And I'm easy to say because I wear a continuous glucose monitor, which measures my blood sugar every 5 minutes. And when I first got that about 15 years ago, I guess it was probably 15 years ago, I started seeing I was eating the typical American breakfast and my blood sugars would spike, even though I was taking insulin, and then I would crash. 10:30 every morning, I was reaching for another cup of coffee. And caffeine dehydrates you, which then makes you more thirsty. I mean, it's a bad cycle. And then when I started doing what I went back to my researching hat and seeing what people around the world do, and they eat salads and protein for breakfast. Most
Mm.
people around the world eat things like, vegetables and things like that. And they don't eat that, they might have eggs, but they don't eat all the junk that we eat. And then
Hmm.
I started seeing not only did my blood sugar stable, but I also had more energy. And so when you do that and you start seeing what works for you, because I could have a twin who also has diabetes, but I don't have a twin, or my sister does not have diabetes, but we could have the exact same thing, but what works for me wouldn't work for her. Just like y'all, what works for one of y'all may not work for the other one. So you got to figure out what works for your body. Once you know what your body can handle and what works for you and doesn't make you lethargic, that's when things start changing. And I used to eat later in the day just because that's what our schedule allowed. And I started realizing I was starting to begin to have problems sleeping at night, but I was eating too big of a meal. So those nights that we do have to eat later in the evening, we'll just do a quick protein shake or something with a little bit of kale or spinach in it. And then we'll have that for dinner. And then I sleep like a baby. So it doesn't matter, but you got to figure out what works best for you. And then again, move. You don't have to ride a
Yeah.
bike across the country. You don't have to do yoga in your backyard.
Yeah.
You don't have to rock around the block, but find what works for you.
I'd love
I
to
want to
know what
ask.
you actually recommend someone without diabetes should eat as a meal, as not just as a meal, as for like a day's plan.
Uh-huh. I would do the same thing that the cancer people should eat, the heart people, the people with diabetes, and the people who want to live a longer, healthier life. What they need to eat is the same thing. Don't eat things that's processed. Stay away from processed food as much as you can. Eat things, our grandmothers and great grandmothers didn't have the luxury of going into the grocery store and buying all these box things. And
Yeah.
people were healthier. Yeah, we didn't live as long, but people were healthier then. So shop at the perimeter of the store and eat what you enjoy. I'm a big salad person, love salads, but other people don't. So what you want to do is find things that are healthy for you. For example, my husband, he loves asparagus. He'll eat asparagus at every meal, even for breakfast, but he doesn't choose to eat salad at every meal. So you just got to find what works best for you. But the same principle applies without diabetes is eat foods that help you and doesn't hurt you. And if you I really recommend this, keep a food log and
Mm-hmm.
don't, it doesn't have to be forever, just a couple of weeks if you can do it. What you ate for breakfast. How did you wake up in the morning? Did you wake up with energy? Did you wake up before the alarm? What you had for breakfast? Did you snack? What'd you have in your coffee? Because there's a lot of unhealthy things people put in their coffees that put in a lot of calories. And then did you, green tea? Green tea is one of the healthiest things you can put in your body. Drink a glass of green tea, a cup of green tea if you like it warm. And then what'd you have for lunch? Did you have lunch? What'd you have for dinner? The times. Would you have a snack? And then do that throughout the whole day. What time did you go to bed? But keep tabs of how much water you drank, how much caffeine you drank. And then the next morning, how did you sleep? And you just continue to do that for 14. If you could do it 21 days, that's even better because you'll start seeing a pattern real quick. And probably within 5 or 6 days, you'll start seeing a change.
I started
I,
tracking all my food, all my
Mm-hmm.
meals, everything I'm putting in my mouth on a tracking app that one
Mm-hmm.
of our other podcast guests told us about.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I started tracking it, I'm eating much better because everything I'm eating, I'm the only one that sees it.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to put it in that app and then it's going to tell me the calories and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I just don't eat what I would have eaten before I was tracking. So I'm eating so well and I've upped my protein a lot
Mm-hmm.
and I
Good.
was always eating good vegetables and stuff. But I love the idea of tracking. It's
Mm-hmm.
really helpful.
mm,
I
And
really recommend it to everybody.
it's life changing. It really, literally is life changing. And
Mm-hmm.
then once you see the changes, you're not going to want to go back. Granted, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm
Yeah.
right there. The first 4 or 5 days, especially if you're an Ulta processed food person where you're eating a lot of processed foods, it's going to be hard because you will get sick. Not sick, but you'll start feeling bad because you're
Yeah.
detoxing. But once you start getting rid of all that
Mm,
trash in
mhm.
your body and you start eating healthy, and then you go and you have something at a birthday party or just a gathering or something, you start eating that, then you go back and you think, oh, I feel horrible. That's what I do when I eat
Mhm.
pizza now. I eat a pizza. Our grandkids love pizza, and I give myself insulin for it. And I'm like, coming home, why did I do that? I
Mhm.
knew better. I could have just had a salad, but you know.
Tracy, tell us, why is diabetes reaching epidemic proportions?
Oh, it's lifestyle. Type 2, it's lifestyle. But what's even
Uh-huh.
scarier is type 1 is also reaching epidemic proportions. And now
Oh.
people now, the age back in the day to type 1 diabetics was usually diagnosed between 8 and 12 years old. I
That's
at 17 was
terrible.
considered an old person. I just met with a lady a couple of weeks ago who was 64 and just diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And a lot of it is environment because that attacks your, attacks your pancreas without going into a whole bunch of detail. So we're going to talk about type 2 because 95% of the world has type 2 diabetes. And go back and look at pictures of food, the plate sizes in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And then now look at the plate sizes now in the 2020 era. And you'll see the difference. And you see what kind of food that we're eating. You go into the gas station when we were kids, or when I was a kid, you go to the gas station, they'd pump your gas, and you never wanted to go inside because they didn't sell anything. It's just they took your money. Now you go into if you go inside to use the restroom or pay in cash or go inside for whatever reason, you're bombarded with all this trash. It's food. It's considered food and it's trash. It's better to go out in the dumpster than it is to eat that. And I'm joking. Obviously I'm joking, but it is. But the
Oh,
thing
dear.
is though, but that's what's happening to us. If you go back and look at pictures of the 70s of people like on the beach, for example, where y'all live, you see where the 70s era pictures and now today, just the difference in sizes. But the
Yeah.
kids, it starts with the kids. We have more children now being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which is pathetic. But the more screen time these children are having, the more risk they have of developing type 2 diabetes. It's because when
Mm-hmm.
we were kids, we were
Well,
outside
there you go.
playing. And the kids that aren't outside playing, that are sitting around watching TV, playing video games, and there's nothing wrong with that, but everything in moderation. But that's the
Mm-hmm.
epidemic rise. Everything is because of what
Absolutely.
we're eating.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I walk every day and I live up by the Hollywood sign. And so
Mm.
I walk uphill and I see so many tourists up there. And I recall seeing one woman who was actually being wheeled on a wheelchair up a dirt path because she was so heavy. And I thought, oh
Oh.
my goodness, can this person even walk? And how sad for her that she can't enjoy the beautiful outdoors the way it's supposed
Mm-hmm.
to be enjoyed. So yeah, it's frightening. Well, what can be done to reduce the diabetic risk factors?
Okay, again, back to my 3M formula. For sure, that's the number one
Mm-hmm.
place to start, the 3M formula. But know your numbers. Don't be afraid. You can go to any kind of big box store and buy home blood testing machines for literally nothing. I mean, you buy their brand and test your blood sugars every once in a while, especially fasting. You can now buy an A1C blood test over the counter. It's in the pharmacy area. You have to ask a pharmacist for it, but you don't have to have a prescription. And an A1C blood test tells you what the it's average, your blood sugar is for 3 months. And that's the first indication. If you start seeing those numbers creeping up, then what you want to do is immediately start changing your eating habits and start exercising and meditate. I mean, all these things reduce stress. That was one thing that I should have mentioned earlier for living longer. Stress is rampant and you got to reduce the stress. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just so many things. And I also have free resources on my website that says this a whole lot better in just Word documents that says what you can do right now to stop anything. It doesn't matter because I was shocked one time. The heart group wanted me to come speak to their big speech for a heart association group. And I said, okay, be glad to, but just FYI, I speak a lot on diabetes. And they said, oh, okay, that's fine. You just bring, we've heard you're a good speaker. Just so bring your stories and blah, blah, blah. And that's the very first speaking event I had ever sold out of all my diabetes books. I mean, and I had a whole bunch with me that trip. And I was like, I finally asked the promoter or the event planner, I said, what's going on? And she said, every single thing you mentioned is exactly now what the cardiologists are telling their patients. And so it's not specific to heart disease, cut out sugar, diabetes, cut out sugar, cancer, for sure, cut out sugar. I mean, when we get rid of the sugar, and I don't mean cut out all sugars, but at least table sugar, sweets and desserts and stuff like that. That's also a great way to start reversing diabetes and just start taking control of your health and having the right mindset, saying, I can change it. It's so much fun for me to work with a client who says, my blood sugars are creeping up. My doctor says I'm getting ready to have to go on medication. And he's like, the doctor says you can't do anything about it. And I'm like, if you can't do it,
Yes, you can.
yeah, because I've always said, I don't want to work with you if I'll refund your money if you don't get the results you want, because I've never had to do that, because everybody gets.
And that's what I wanted to ask you next about what inspired you to become a certified health and wellness coach.
Well, it started back, which is funny, at 17, because one of the days I got out of the ICU and I was in my own private room or shared room, and I had to go to a training, and I had several men in there that I thought they were old. They were probably in their 40s, and they both had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And one of the men was saying, oh, my life is over. I hate this. I can't even have a birthday cake at my grandson's birthday party and stuff like that. And he was poor, pitiful me. And I threw all this stacks of books that they give you to learn about all this. And I threw it down and I said, I'd give my right arm to be able to have a child. I'd have my right arm not to ever have to take a shot, but I don't have that luxury. And I walked out, and the psychiatrist was like, are you okay? But that man came in that night and started asking me advice. What did you do? What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And he and I stayed in contact for several years. And then I don't know, a certified personal trainer back in 2002, I think it was, when I became a certified personal trainer. And that's when I met a lady that couldn't afford going to the gym that I worked at. She came for her free visit, and she was a single mom, which is my heart is for single moms. And she was heavy, very heavy, and needed some help. And so I started working with her and went to the local high school track and just started doing some calisthenics and walking and stuff like that. And then she's the one that inspired me to go ahead and get certified, because I wanted to help other people just like her. And then that was that step. And then it just all started going to wellness coaching. And I thought, well, Tracy, it's not just working out, it's the whole entire body. So that's when I became a wellness coach. And then as I aged, when I started getting in my late 50s, I started thinking, I need to start thinking about how are we going to live longer, healthier lives, not just healthier lives. So that's why that's kind of the journey I've taken over the decades.
Yeah, well, I can see how that would have worked for you, and maybe being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes was a blessing in disguise. It certainly set you on your life path, even though it isn't fun exactly. But you mentioned the two choices before, bitter and better. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
How does that impact health for everybody?
Oh, positive mindset is so important. And I'm not one of these fluffy people that says, oh, sit there and say, life is great. Life is great. And it's not, if you're having a major problem, it's not. But I'm a firm believer. Every day I read something inspirational. Every day. And then I listen to inspirational podcasts. I listen to music that lifts me up, because all of that stuff is so important, because we can let things happen that's going on in the world really create havoc for us. It can mess with our minds. And that's a great example. When I went on my bike ride, I say my bike ride. I just call it my bike ride. People are like,
your bike ride.
It's more than a bike ride. But what was so funny though, was that I left feeling like, the country's going, it's a horrible spot. Everybody's horrible. Nobody likes each other. And I met some of the most nice people throughout my journey. Somebody stopped, and a construction worker, and gave me her last or I guess it was road construction, her last bottle of water. And I just happened to look and she said, "No, darling, this is for you. You keep spreading your message." And I thought, people honking their horn saying you can do it. I stopped in a little town in Nevada and I was just sitting there trying to decide what I was going to do. And because I got lost throughout my whole entire journey, but that's another story. But she came
That's
up and
fun.
she said, "Here, I just felt like I needed to bless you with this food," and just gave me food to eat. And I thought, wow, I had a flat tire and a guy just showed up out of nowhere, had the supplies he needed, fixed it, and then gave me a bunch of water. I mean, just things like that. The whole entire trip was that exact. I was just afraid a couple of times. I rode through some very, very dangerous areas of the country, and that was scary, but I kept going, just thinking I can do it. I can do it. But you can't ever lose hope. And I think that doctor, he instilled in me saying, "You have no hope." Basically, he didn't say that. That's the way I took it from what he told me was going to happen. And I thought, without hope, we have nothing. So we can't lose hope. Whatever you're struggling with, I don't care if it's age. I don't care if it's a diagnosis. I don't care if it's a financial crisis. Whatever it is, just realize, okay, what can I do this very day? Or if you can't even think about the day, what can I do this very moment to make my life better just right now? And then you start seeing, oh, okay. And then small steps. It's not like you go out and ride your bike across the country. And it's not like you go start eating perfectly healthy all the time or say, "I'm going to be positive the rest of my life." But small steps equals big changes. And that's when I left on my bicycle ride in San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, if I would have known I had that far to ride, I would have been overwhelmed. And who wouldn't have? But every day I got on my bike and I said, "I'm going for a bike ride," just like I did
How
when I
many
was a
miles did
kid.
you do each day, do you think?
That varied. I have you should see
Yeah.
my spreadsheet because it was fun. But every day, because I did so many TV appearances and speaking, and we also shot a documentary. So it varied. But for Wyoming is a great example. I could only go 76 miles because that was the next rest stop. So I actually rode Interstate 80. So I'd go from one rest stop and I'd go to 76 miles to the next rest stop, and then 76
Wow.
miles to the next rest stop.
That's
A
a
couple of
lot.
times I went 100 miles. I wanted to go further those days. I was in Nebraska and Iowa, and I couldn't because we had to have a place to park the RV. And so because of the RV, that kind of limited me, which if I'd had a tent, then I would have been able to just
Yeah,
sleep
but
on the side of the
you
road.
did it the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, I
tell
wouldn't be
us
here talking to you if I hadn't.
Yeah.
tell us a couple of things. Tell us, what is the longevity movement? I think you coined that phrase. And also, what would you like our listeners to have today as their main takeaway?
Okay. Longevity movement. Incredible story. We were with a group of friends, probably 8 different couples, and every single person was our age or maybe a little bit younger. And they were all complaining about their aches and pains. They can't. They kept saying, "I
Oh,
can't, I can't, I can't." And I kept thinking, I, they were friends, so I keep my mouth shut. And I'm just like, "Hey guys, let's don't be the I can't group. Let's be the I can group. And I started saying, so on the way home that night, my husband and I were like, we're not going to be those kind of people. We're not. So we met a couple, the first time we hiked backpack to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, we met a couple who was 84 and 86, and they hiked to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back out twice a year. And then we just did the Grand Canyon in May, twice a
twice a
year.
year.
And my
Oh,
husband and I just did it in
God.
May this year again for the third time. And we hiked to the bottom with our backpack on, with our tents and our water and everything, and then hike back out. And that's what the movement's all about, is whatever you want to do, don't give up thinking I'm old. Like sitting on a rocking chair. I'm 80. I have to sit in a rocking chair. No, you don't. You can go play tennis. You can go do whatever you want to do. You can go shopping. You can go dancing. That's what the movement is all about, is spreading hope and the message to people like our age and older that, hey guys, you can do whatever you want. Don't resign to being, I'm old, it's always going to be this way, because it's not. You can do things right now, even if you have bad joints, even if you have bad shoulders like I did. I mean, you can do things to make yourself better. And it all starts with a 3M formula. I mean, that's what it is. But I just get so upset with people. I have a friend who's 40 and she's only 40. And she's like, "I'm so old." And I'm like, No, I have
Oh,
kids your
no.
age. I have kids your age. No, so that's what it's all about. The movement is just providing hope and tools to help people realize that they can take control of their health no matter what.
That
I
is great for our
love that.
takeaway.
That's
That is great
great.
for our
Thank you
takeaway.
so much, Tracy. This is just inspiring, uplifting, and filled with hope. And I'm inspired. Our guest today on Late Boomers has been Tracy Herbert, author, speaker, wellness coach, podcast host. You can find out all about her coaching and her books on her website, tracyherbert.com. Thank you so much again. I so appreciate your being with us. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks.
And
It
we
was
want to
great fun.
ask, you're so welcome on our podcast. It was such a welcome. You're such a breath of fresh air. I know why you speak at a lot of places. We want to ask our listeners to check out our YouTube Late Boomers podcast channel and please subscribe. We need some subscribers there. Also, please give us a 5-star review on your favorite platform, and you can DM us on Instagram, or you can drop us a line at lateboomers.biz, B-I-Z. And we are on Instagram at I am Kathy Worthington, at I am Mary Elkins, and at Late Boomers. We always strive to inspire, entertain, and motivate you. Thanks again, Tracy.
Thanks. It was so much fun.
Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at lateboomers.biz. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.